And hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name's Thomas, aka MrWartburg, doing a little kind of a rapid reaction slash recap to The Last of Us Episode 4. Please hold on to my hand, the episode title. This is kind of a supplementary thing. I do have a normal podcast I do with my friend Fusion. It's called the Wartburg and Fusion Entertainment Review. It's here on the channel if you want to check that out. Doing this as a supplementary because we do every other week recording. We did episode 3 last week. We did an emergency one for that just utterly outstanding episode with Nick Offerman and Murray Bartlett. So I just wanted to do a single little one-off for episode 4, and we might do one before the Super Bowl next week, because if you haven't seen the news, episode 5 is going to drop 2 days early on Friday, so that way it gets out of the Super Bowl window for next Sunday, of course, that being the biggest media event in North America in the entire year. So of course they want to get the heck out of that window and do it on Friday. So to start with, episode 4, I think it's not going to be, no one's rushing out to Twitter to say, hey, give everybody an Emmys, but it's still an incredibly effective narrative-driven episode because you're getting, number one, the better, and I should say blossoming of relationship between Joel and Ellie. Like, that's really coming to the forefront where, like, he's opening up to her, vice versa. They're cracking jokes, they're smiling. Like, they're just generally being better to each other, as opposed to the start of episode 3, where they're still very standoffish, and especially from Joel to Ellie. At least that's how I was taking it. The stuff in the car along the way, like her finding the magazine ripped straight from the games. I love how that's just, it's not, I believe I was watching, I can't remember who it was breaking this down. Like, it's not fan service, that's just the best way to tell the story. And The Last of Us is full of that from the game. The narrative design of it is just damn near perfect. So it's the one-to-ones are just because it's the best way to do the scene. And I really, really dug that. Speaking of games, guy you'll see later in the episode, the bearded commando guy played Tommy. I really love how they're using those actors. Like, of course, Marlene is the same. Tommy's a different cast, of course. But, like, we're going to see Troy Baker in the show. We're going to see Ashley Johnson. Ashley's the name. That's her name, right? I can't even remember. That girl who played Ellie and the woman who played Ellie in the game. I've never actually played the games. I've watched them be played. I got through the point in the game where Tess died, and the gameplay I kept bouncing off. But I do really love the story, which is why I was very hyped for the show. Other stuff in this, set up pieces too, like the bloater in the basement. We're going to see that next week, and it's going to be freaking awesome. Seeing that last cliffhanger with Henry and Sam, knowing what happens in the game with them, that's going to be just, God, that's going to be fucking heartbreaking. I love the background world building with the Fedra versus the Revolutionaries. Like, that was really, really well done. Like, the Revolutionary, whatever their name's going to be, if they're going to even give them a name, as like a force or a government or whatever, led by Melanie Linsky's Kathleen character. I thought that's a really interesting way to look at and see how different groups are living in this world. Obviously, in Boston, they have their established QZ, Fedra's still running the show, and there's obviously the tension there with the civilization, with the civilian population. Whereas in now Kansas City, it's flipped, right? Like, the Fedra's gone. Fedra's just, did they abandon it? Were they overthrown? We didn't see that here, but maybe we'll get more of that background in episode 5, especially it's the same director, so it's probably going to be more of a kind of a two-parter kind of story, I would imagine, which will include more flashbacks to what the hell happened in Kansas City. Speaking of Kansas City, someone in my Discord, actually I think it might have been Fusion, was saying how he was wondering why they changed from Kansas City, or to Kansas City from Pittsburgh in the game, and they kind of changed their route. They went more of a southern route than they did along the northern highway route that they could have taken from Boston. And I actually have a scene pulled up here. Let me switch to it. Nope, I was clicked on the wrong window. That's full screen. So I'll zoom in a little more so we can get everything here on the map. So obviously Kansas City's over here. And they're coming from Boston, which is just off the map. That's right there. I'll get it back on. So everything's right on there. So coming from here, right? So they end up taking, in the game, it's through Pittsburgh. But to go, and then they end up coming down. So they go through Pittsburgh. They must have gone through Columbus, then Indianapolis, St. Louis, and over to Kansas City. Suppose they could have maybe stayed out of the major cities and gone through, like Decatur, Springfield, Quincy, down through over here, if they wanted to avoid the larger populated areas. Obviously, with the U.S. highway system layout, you can't entirely do that. And to go back to my full screen here, obviously it's a show, not a game. So in the narrative sense, like the game, you could take however many hours to get there, right? They wanted to break it up in certain phases. They broke it up by the seasons, how they told that story. In the show, you've only got 9 episodes, so you got to move. And when you're driving, if you got the gas, you can make pretty good distance if you're not running into obstacles, especially with a semi-direct shot. And taking this route through Kansas City, I think it fit. And then there was also the tag at the end of the episode, if you listen to the kind of after show that they do. Obviously, it's a real-world show, so they need to find one-to-one corollaries between what they can shoot where they were at in Calgary versus the geography, the type of buildings that are actually in the Kansas City downtown, versus, say, like Chicago's got a pretty significantly different architectural style than Kansas City, right? Now, and Chicago's a more well-known skyline, too. So you want it to be more nondescript. And Kansas City versus Calgary, I can see why they would make that decision. You could have seen maybe St. Louis, but again, you got the arch and stuff to worry about with the geography. Could have seen Des Moines. Depends on how they wanted to do that. Those two aren't that dissimilar in terms of how the downtown actually looks. And where they would have been shooting. But Kansas City worked just fine. So that was just one thing. I know my buddy put it in Discord. So I was like, I think it's fine. It doesn't matter. It just helps them speed along the narrative to where they're going to go, because they're going to finish everything with Henry and Sam. Knowing where they're going to end with Henry, it's probably going to be on that plot point with what happens with them. So I don't want to spoil anything there if you haven't experienced the story before. Pretty significant event happens. Obviously, it's an HBO show. There's going to be some pretty up there drama. And then I would imagine episode 6 is when we're finally going to get to Wyoming. Or at least maybe 6 will be the Kansas City to Wyoming journey, and then end at episode 6 will be in Wyoming. And then 7 is with Tommy. That would be my guess of the narrative structure of how they're going to play it all out, but we'll see what happens there. Anything else on my notes that I took? Oh, I really dug the Hank Williams, the kind of score over just them driving through just the desolated area in LA, realizing how much has been lost, because she's lived inside a sheltered reality for 13 years and knows obviously the world's fucked up. But as you see with the conversations in episode 3 about planes and stuff, they don't really know, and it's hard to grasp how that would affect you if you don't know the world that came before. Just seeing what it is now and what's been left behind, I thought that stark reality covered, of course, by the Hank Williams music. I thought that was just extremely well done. So yeah, I really, really dug this episode. I don't think it was a standout 10 out of 10, holy crap, give, 2 guys, all the awards like last week's, but I still think it was an extremely effective episode, especially because now we're bought into the relationship of Ellie and Joel, and that's going to be the thing you need to be bought in on for the story to actually hit in the finale. If that didn't work, the whole story would be meaningless. So I'm really glad we got a sharper focus on that, and that really showed up really, really well. And of course, Bella Ramsey, and we know Pedro Pascal's awesome. Bella Ramsey killed it, as usual. And I'm glad that she's really shining in this role, in a larger role than the prior things I've seen her in, at least. So that's all I got. If you like this kind of shorter breakdown, cool, let me know. I might do them for more episodes in the future. If you want a longer form discussion, maybe with some other people, like my co-host or some guests we might bring on, we do have a podcast. It's called the Wartburg Infusion Entertainment Review. I will link that down below. And of course, it's here on my actual YouTube channel as well. So you can check that out. It's on audio feeds. It's on YouTube. We stream it on Twitch. That'll all be in the descriptions below. We'll be probably recording, I would imagine, Saturday after episode 5 drops, because we'll have all day. So be on the lookout for that. Hopefully, if you like this, just be sure, drop the usual like, subscribe stuff. I'm not going to beat a dead horse with that. It's YouTube. You know what to do. Yeah. See ya.